Sure.
Mm.
Okay, so let it record, and I think it will record in my locals. Probably I'll put it in the drive and share it with you.
Okay, and then I will be able to download it, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, okay, yeah, we'll do that. So thanks. Once we start, Murli, right? So we'll start with your introduction, and then you can pick up the topic, right?
Great. So, hello everyone. I am Murali. So, I have over 10 plus years of experience in the IT industry. So, in that, almost all of my experience comes in payments domain. I would say rather in a banking domain. So, I've got a chance to work in payments for different clients like Lloyd's or Citi, HSBC, Society General. So from there, I have learned payments in different areas. Like into some to summarize, then I got an opportunity to work with all kind of systems for the all kind of core systems for the payment processing. So yeah, so that's it about me. Today we are going to see about the core concepts that helps us to initiate payments that from what I mean, what are the things that one should be aware that if you want to work in the payments, right? To start with, because payment is a very vast area and everything will take uh, more time to explain. So in this 1 hour period, we were able to, I will try to complete at least the fundamentals, the core concepts. Like we have 6, 7 topics, so we'll try to complete that. So that's the agenda today. And at the end of every concept, I'll ask for a question and you can raise your questions if you have any, right? So I'll share my screen and we'll get it started. Okay. So I believe everyone is able to see my screen, right? Okay. So the first thing is about payment is, can you please tell me what is your understanding on payments? Anyone? You can unmute yourself and say about your understanding because we are doing payments, quite very long time.
Payment is a transaction.
Transaction of, right?
Uh, Money transfer, right? So if you purchase something, you are making payment for that.
Yes, you could say that. Yes, true. But I would say, in general, payment is a mechanism of transferring a value between buyer and seller. So, for example, right, it can be it's just a value, and the value is perceived by the person who is involved in the payment. So somebody perceive that value as a money, or somebody perceive that value as anything like object, service, or anything, or even knowledge transfer. So it can be anything. So it's only between two people minimum, and uh, how they value things between each other. So that's a general definition of a payments. So it can be, value can be anything. So when we are going next about the payment processing, this is where we are going to talk about the online payments. So online payment is what I'm sure I don't have to explain you, because we are all using a lot of we are doing a lot of online payments using Google Pay or UPI payments, net banking, phone banking, whatever it is. So we are all doing the online payments. So the payments are getting processed in the banking infrastructure, right? So what it does is, or what is the main goal of that, those systems are that moving a money from one party to another, and they'll be using the systems. So basically, we'll call it as an IT infrastructure of a bank, or it can be any financial institutions. Reason is, even if you can use Google Pay is technically not a bank. So that is one of the fintech. So that is, they are offering a service for you to initiating a payment. So that's why it is either it is IT infrastructure of a bank or any of the financial institution that helps you to move money from one party to another party. So typically in payments domain, in general, we can say there are online payment initiation. You can initiate payment through net banking or Google Pay, UPI, whatever it is. Or offline payment initiation, it can be a checks, DD, or you can go to branch and fill up a challan for initiating a payment. Next one is the card payment. Card payment is when, right, you go to that POS machine and you just swipe your card. But whereas here, this terms itself, card itself is a vast domain. Whereas in payments, we will be mostly seeing about how cardless payments, like the normal payments we initiate, right, how it is getting processed. So that's what the main scope of the payments domain is in general, right? So in our today's session's scope is also about how to do the payment transactions or how to do the payment processing when a payments are getting initiated either from online or offline. So these concepts are same for both online and offline because this is a core of payment processing that will remain same for everything. Okay. So end-to-end workflow. Okay. Can you please anyone tell me in general you can initiate payment to what kind of geographies? Any idea? I mean, normally who can be the sender? Anyone can be the receiver. So the receiver can be in different locations, right? So across that, you have any idea how it is categorized?
Yeah, it's domestic and international transaction.
True, true. Yes. So we have domestic payments where, for example, you can say sender is in India and receiver also in India, and they are using banks that is also located in India. So it means it is a domestic payment. So payment starts at India and ends at India. So typically the currency of that payment would be INR because it is a local transfer or domestic transfer. Whereas, like you said, we have international payment. So technically we call it as cross-border payments. So where the sender will be in one country, let's say in India, and receiver will be in another country, let's say, sorry, excuse me, in USA, right? So the banks of those senders and receiver also will be in the respective countries or different countries. So sender's bank would be in India and receiver's bank would be in USA. So how we are going to make money transfer from India to USA, those concepts are covered in cross-border payments. So next thing is we have one more concept that is regional payments. So regional payments currently are, mainly introduced to improve the trade between the group of countries. For example, right, Europe has a group of countries and they have come up and created a one payment scheme for them. So around 38 countries are part of that. That is called SEPA, Single Euro Payment Area. So even though geographically it is different countries, ideally they should use this cross-border payment for the uh, transaction between those countries. But they all came up and formed a group, and that group will be using a euro as a single currency for all 38 countries. So that is called a regional payment system. So that would be, for example, let's say a sender is in France and a receiver is in Belgium, and their banks also in a respective country. But if they want to use a euro transfer between them, they can use the SEPA payment. So even though geographically both are different countries, you can still use a common payment system for initiating a payment. And the difference is either in a domestic transfer or a regional transfer, currency is same currency for sender and receiver. For the cross-border payments alone, the currency will differ. Here in India, it is INR. You will initiate a payment through INR. When it goes to US and goes to the receiver, then it will be in USD. So that's the main difference that you have to see in the payment processing. Okay. So any questions you have in this?
Just want to know about SEPA.
Mhm.
I think it is from Eurozone, but of course, it can be possible only countries having the same currency. Why? Because London is having different currency.
True.
I'm
That's what
not sure whether it's
you
part of
need to
SEPA or
be.
not.
That's what true. UK, see, when you say UK, right? UK's local currency is pounds.
Hmm.
But Since they are part of SEPA, they can use the SEPA payments using euro. So that's what you need to be part of the SEPA group. There are 38 countries, so they have segregated like European Economic Area, non-European Economic Area, something like that. So if you are part of any one of those, then you can use payments of SEPA systems.
So SEPA is also a single currency, right? We can't
Yes,
do.
no,
Okay. Yeah.
that's what it's a single euro payment.
Okay.
SEPA,
Okay.
single euro payment.
So
Okay,
in terms of the transaction, can we say SEPA is similar to domestic payments
exactly,
because
exactly. Yes,
both use the same currency?
yes, true. We can say that it is kind of a domestic payment only.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll move forward. Okay. So end-to-end flow. So the main goal of an end-to-end flow is you have to debit the originator's account, which means you have to take the money from the sender, and you have to credit the receiver, which means give the money to the sender through one bank, two bank, or multiple banks. Okay. So whatever the banks involved, the ultimate goal of the end-to-end flow is debit the money on one side, credit the money on the other side. So for that, we have some core concepts that is used for the payments. So what the concepts that we are going to see, it applies for domestic transfer and almost except two to three concept, almost all of these concepts are applies for cross-border also. Okay, so we are going to see those things. First one is accounts, because without accounts, you cannot initiate a payment, and we will see the types of accounts, how it is used. And next one is messages. Just like we are talking through English and I'm conveying my message through English, the bank also has to communicate. Here you can see, right? The banks have to communicate with each other. So you have to send one request and bank has to send a response back. So those communication will be happening using an message. And currently there is a one trend is going on. Almost entire world is, all the banks of the world is adapting to that message that is called ISO 20022 standard at XML messages. So the language they will be speaking in XML format, and the message they want to convey will be used in different contexts they can use. Right. So messages are, the electronic messages are used for the communication between banks. Are also there are some messages defined to use between sender to their banks or receiver to their banks. So we have a segregation of those. And next one is connectivity. Now I have a message, and here I have a sender bank, I have a receiver bank, I have a message also. But how do I send a message to the bank? How do I send a message to the receiver bank? That's where the connectivity comes into the picture. When we say connectivity, it plays two roles. Either it is a technical connectivity, like how do I send a message to them in terms of technicality, or it is a business process also. Now I don't have a direct connection to the receiver bank. So how do I reach a receiver bank? Through any other means. Like I can contact some other system or some other bank in middle to and ask them to facilitate a transaction between my bank and receiver bank. So those are the connectivity part. And next one is routing. So routing is where you will be identifying whom to send a message. Right, I need to identify a receiver bank, right? The sender can send any message. For example, today I am going to initiate a payment. Let's say that I'm from, say, HDFC Bank, and I'm initiating a payment that Axis Bank. So in Axis Bank, it can be so many branches, right? So how do I identify which branch it is, right? So that the message can properly route to that particular bank for processing. So those things will be will be identified in the concept of routing. So next one is clearing. Clearing is something that happens in middle of sender and receiver bank. So this is a concept where the payments are validated, I would say, and sent to the receiver bank. And settlement is something that a central bank will do. Central bank in the sense, in India, in the Indian context, we have a RBI, right? So RBI is a central bank for India. Like that, every country will have their own central bank, and their central bank would facilitate the transaction between sender and receiver banks, right? So in this, to process all these core concepts, we need a system, basically software. So those softwares are generally called as payment processing systems. So whenever we someone says, are you working on any payment processing? So it comprises all these concepts. But one difference is that out of these six, only these four can be controlled or four can be changed by the bank. So these two systems are outside of the bank scope. If you are working for a particular bank, then you can have a control over these four concepts only. You cannot you cannot have any control on these things. Basically, a bank supposed to do what these guys are telling you to do. So that's how it is. They will define what message you need to send, how to send, what is the encryption you need to use, what is the logic of this encryption. Everything they will decide, and all the banks have to follow that. That's how it will be. Okay. So any questions on this?
Murli, can you please explain about the routing and
Yeah.
who is the clearing basically? It is also in some regulator or is it some mediator in between?
Okay. So we will get to that concepts so that I will explain it in detail. That's why I just touched upon these things. Okay. So that we will define every concept in detail.
Okay, okay, no
Yeah.
worries.
One question only. So we are saying RBI will be facilitating the transactions, right? So
Not
besides
facilitating, they will be settling the transaction.
settling, okay.
Yeah.
So what's the particular reason that RBI, wants to be involved in all the transactions? Is it mainly to avoid money laundering and, keep checks, or is there something else as well?
Okay,
What are the benefits?
that is one of the reason. Like
Mhm.
being involved in this payment checks, they will know that they can control what is happening. That is one. The main reason would be like all the banks. Okay, technically the banking structure is like all the banks will be having their account in RBI or their central bank. You might have heard right. You might have heard right. So banks has to maintain certain amount within RBI. So
Hmm?
so they will be opening an account there. All the banks will open an account in the central bank, and central bank, whatever the transaction, it is defined like that. Say whatever the transaction that any banks would do, it has to go through their central bank. They would offer a system. It has to go through that so that it would be easier for the central bank to identify which bank is processing properly, or which bank has enough money, or everything. The If the RBI wants to track anything, so those are all accounts that would be handy for the RBI. So that's why they are keeping those accounts in their books. So tomorrow, if banks just becomes let's say bankrupt, so IRBI can easily identify in advance that how whether what's wrong with those banks, all those things they are able to do, right? So based on all these things are being analyzed by RBI using this control they have over using this account facility they have.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
Yeah.
I understand. So we are saying they're making the settlements, right?
Mhm.
So does it happen that they make the settlement first and the sender's bank is, giving them the amount later, or is it always like once they receive the amount from sender bank, then only they will settle it to the receiver?
Okay. So there are two concepts. So we will discuss more about that in clearing settlement, because I'm not explaining now because we have only 1 hour and it's difficult to
Yeah,
cover all
sure.
those things if I answer it now.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, maybe I would just request now. So would it be okay if we extend by 10-15 minutes? I doubt we
Yeah,
will be.
that should be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, then the first we'll go with an accounts. So accounts are merely we say that we can see that it is an some type of alphanumeric number that we have, and against which we can see what is our balance, right? So basically, from that we can derive one point that accounts are basically used for tracking all the credit debits that happens against one person. For example, I'm having an one savings account. So if banks wants to track how much money I have, or how much money I'm getting, or how much money I'm giving to someone else, then how do it track against one person, right? So that's why we are having an account. So today we are having alphanumeric format account. Tomorrow, if it is comes in some kind of key or cryptos, whatever it is, and they can use those technology for account. So basically, account is something that tracks your fund movements against you. That's why it has to be unique, right? That's why even if you are the same person, and if you go to a same bank and ask for a loan, they will create another new account so that they can easily track all the loan related stuff against that account number. So if they, for example, right, just assume that uh, they are they are tracking your loan and your investments like FDs and RDs, and also you're checking a normal saving account, everything against in one number. Would it be easier or for the bank to know which transaction is meant for which one, right? It would be very tedious task. So that's why the banks are basically having an accounts for making a money movement. And another thumb rule is without accounts, you cannot make money transfer, right? So because that's what we saw, right? Money accounts are used for tracking the money. So if there is no account, you cannot track the fund. So technically, you are not allowed to send the money. So in general, there are so many accounts are there in banks. Even we come across that FD account, RD account, loan account, blah blah blah, right? But in payments, mostly we will be talking about these five terms. First one is DDA account. DDA accounts are nothing but a normal account that you and me open in the banks. So whatever the accounts we open, that is called DDA accounts. The full form is demand deposit account. So you can deposit at any time, you can withdraw at any time without notifying your bank. So that's what DDA account means. Next one is the settlement account. So Shipra, you asked, right? So how settlements are happening in RBI? So each and every bank will open their account in RBI in Indian context. So those accounts are called as settlement account. So these accounts are filled with some money for settlement. Each and every time the banks perform the settlement, so RBI will check that whether the bank is having enough fund in their account or not. If they have, then only they will transfer the money. Otherwise, they will stop or they will reject the fund. And there are various mechanisms to fund those account to to fulfill or to increase the amount in the settlement account. If any banks are maintaining it lower, that itself is a very big concept, liquidity management. But for now, just understand every bank will have their own one account in the RBI, which will be helping them to using which the RBI will settle the funds between two banks. Next one is the internal account. Here, settlement accounts are opened by banks and held at RBI. The internal accounts are opened by banks, but it is within their book only. So internal accounts is like sometimes debit will happen from our account, and you will get a notification that credited is not credited, so you will get the amount back in 2 days or 3 days or 2 hours, 3 hours, right? So till then, that amount is whatever the amount that is debited, that will be parked in one another account or other account. Those accounts are called internal account, or in terms otherwise we call it as suspense account. So normally these are the situations where those accounts, internal accounts, are being used. Like we debit it, and if I'm not able to send the money to some other system, then I will keep it in my another account as a temporary purpose. So those accounts are called internal accounts. So next one is Nostro, Vastro, Loro. So these two concepts, Nostro, Vastro, Loro, and mirror accounts, these two concepts are predominantly used in cross-border payments. So whenever we send the money to India to, let's say, USA, so these are all the accounting concepts that we need to have a clear understanding about. For example, let's say from India, I have an HDFC, and city in USA, I have a Citibank. And also assume that I'm having one small bank like Cooperative Bank in India, which is a smaller bank compared to HDFC. Now, I want to send a fund to one of my friend in USA, and I'm approaching an HDFC. And HDFC, let's say, uh, at the moment, at present, they don't have the facility, but they're saying that I will be giving you a facility soon. Assume that's the case. So in middle, what happens is that HDFC will approach Citi, and they will become a customer of Citi. So when, for example, right, when we as a retail customers, when we become a customer of a bank, normally we are opening an account, right? Like that, when HDFC, even all the banks would become a customer of another bank, they also have to open an own account, right? So what happens is HDFC wants to open an account in Citi, which is in USA. So ultimately, that account currency is USD. So they say this is the account number 1236. This is the account number. Now, this account number is held in Citi's book, and HDFC simply doesn't know, right? So example, let's take our case also. We have an account in our bank, and if we want to track that, we have to log into that particular net banking or whatever and see the statement, or approach the bank to get the statement, right? So we exactly don't know what is happening with our account until or unless we specifically look for that, right? So that's the same case happens for the HDFC also. Okay, so that's why they will open one account in mirror accounts. So I'll just come to that mirror in a while. Okay, for now, HDFC has opened an account. Now, Nostro means, now HDFC will say, this is my Nostro account. I opened an account with you. Otherwise, my account with you. So that is Nostro. The same account is denoted by Citi as Vostro. Your account with me. That is Vostro. And if say someone third bank, the cooperative bank wants to mention that account for any of the transfer, then that becomes Loro, which means their account, right? So to simplify, let's take, I would say my name is Murali, that is Nostro. And someone of you maybe you would say that your name is Murali, that is Vostro, because you are seeing it from your perspective. But that is my name, and you are seeing it from your perspective. So that's why you would say Vostro. And someone outside of this our meeting or whatever, they say his name is Murali, right? So from that perspective, I'm a third person. We are directly involving, so that's why we are saying I am and yours. But whereas when some other person involves, he would say his name is Murali. So that would be a Loro account. But ultimately, what they are saying is the same one. My name, that is Murali, right? So that thing didn't change. Only the concept or perspective to that particular thing has changed here. So that's what Nostro, Loro means. Okay. Next one is simply mirror accounts. We said, right, HDFC opens an account in Citi, and it is in Citi's books. And whenever HDFC wants to transfer money or receive money to this account, they don't have the direct visibility. Direct in the sense, if they want to, they have to log into their system or whatever the means the city has provided to them to check the balance of that account. But it is not efficient because they will be doing lots of transfers to that account, and every time logging into that account, checking the balance, all those things are not efficient. So that's why they will literally, as soon as this account is opened, they will open one more account in the HDFC books, that is called mirror account, and this account are linked together. The difference is Nostro will be in USD currency, the mirror Nostro will be in INR currency, local currency. So they will open here and they will track it. How they track it? It will just exactly mirror whatever happens here. For example, now HDFC is instructing Citi to send the money to someone, which means this account is debited. Whenever sending a money means account is debited. Let's say, this account is having $1,000. Okay, for easier understanding, it is having $1,000, and I'm saying send $100 to someone. So now it will have a $900. So what happens here is that here debited happened. Now what happens here is that it will exactly mimic the total balance here. Let's say for an easier example, in city we had $1,000. Let's say it is a $1 is 80 rupees. So this mirror account will have 8,000 rupees. Sorry, 80,000 rupees, right? So exactly it will have 80,000 rupees. So when I say transfer $100 to someone, and the equivalent of $100 will be credited here. Okay, so 100 into 8, so 8,000 will be credited here. So finally the balance would be uh, like 88,000, whereas it will be $100 are debited, so it will be like $900, right? So that's how they will actually do. So whatever the transaction, ultimately you need to understand is that whatever transaction happening here, they will mirror it. If it is debit, then it is a credit. If it is credit here, then debit here. So ultimately when they reconcile, the sum of those two entries will become 0. Okay, so any questions in this? I know it's slightly confusing, but any questions?
So we can say mirror is like a local tab that I am keeping at my end just to
True,
understand how much money is there, right?
true, true,
It is
true.
not linked with city in any way. So as in
It
I
is linked
am
with the
going,
account. So whenever you
hmm.
are doing an transaction here, you will do an entry
Hmm.
here also.
But that is something that will be handled by HDFC itself. That
HDFC.
if I am crediting that account, I should debit this account. That is
Yes,
HDFC's logic, so that they can have a tab of how much money they have in that account, right?
true, true, true. Right, because
Okay.
the reason is tomorrow if they don't track this amount, and if there is no enough money for making one transaction, so that transaction will not go through, right? So the HDFC has to arrange funds in last minute, and so many hurry-burry things will happen.
Hmm.
So to avoid all those things, to make an efficient transaction, they will keep an eye on this account. So that eye is called mirror account, you can say. Okay, so in general there are couple of thumb rules. First is, if account is debited, then it must be credited at somewhere, right? So like I said, right, if amount is debited from your account, it has to be credited to some account. The system cannot hold that in you know uh, in memory or something like that, because it is systems. If it is crashed, then that's it. Your amount is debited, whatever is debited, that's debited only. You will not have any account to reconcile it. So that's why if it is debited, then it must be credited to some account. The second one is the same concept. If debit and credited is there, then some of those things should be 0. For example, 100 rupees is debited from my account, and if 100 rupees is credited to, let's say, Abhijit, your account, then total debit and credit supposed to be 0. There should not be any difference except for those charges. Okay, but ideally, even if you calculate all those charges, it will come around 0. It has to be 0 for ACL reconcile. Okay.
Acha Murli,
Hmm.
sorry to interrupt. In a common layman term, if I look upon this your example,
Mhm.
if my HDFC India and the City USA.
Mhm.
So, dealing between these two, the first query of mine is ki there is no RBI involved in between.
In a cross border, no. Yes, I mean, not directly, but the payment, whatever happens from HDFC City, right? So there will be some kind of regulatory information. Everything is communicated through that message. So those regulatory terms is followed based on the RBI norms.
No, because USA they would be following as a central bank, and
Correct.
here HDFC would be following the RBI.
RBI, true, true.
So now if any of the payment is being made, so
Mhm.
HDFC will be making the payment to City USA, but nor RBI is aware, nor the central bank is aware.
No, they are aware. That's what I'm saying, right? So there are different mechanisms that the banks will be doing that. They will have to report to that central bank. So we have one regulatory reporting concept. Okay. So based on that
Yeah.
concept, the bank HDFC is responsible for whatever the money that comes into our country, or I mean from HDFC context, or whatever
Hmm.
goes to other country from HDFC bank. So they are responsible and they have to report it to RBI.
Okay.
So that's a different mechanism. Risk, all those regulations, those things will be coming to the picture. But for payments perspective, it's just in high level. You just need to be aware of those things. But
Okay.
definitely
So
RBI is
now,
keeping an eye on that
okay, we are assuming there might be some
mechanism.
intermediary mechanism might be over there, so
Yeah.
that any payment is going across border over there. So RBI is having the control, as well as
No,
the
no, they
central
will
bank
not.
is aware of it.
They will not take a look at each and every transaction. But in cumulative way, there is a guidelines. There is a
Hmm.
some kind of how do I say
Reporting over there,
reporting.
returns
Yes,
over there. Correct.
they have to follow
So
that.
we are somewhat aware of it. So
Hmm.
normally for your example, what you have put it, so I may as a layman, because I guess that some of the audience from the audience, they might not be aware of the banking over there.
Hmm.
So I may put it in some simpler layman terms. Like if I have a client who is importing from USA.
Hmm.
Okay, so now HDFC's job is to make the payment. He is the importer bank, and whereas the City USA is the exporters bank. So these two banks are in intermediate. So when he will be taking the payment from the importer, and he will be submitting that payment to that particular exporters bank. So that particular the payment has been done. The foreign remittance has been completed
Yeah. Hmm.
against some bill or something like that.
Yeah.
And that particular foreign bank would be crediting it in the exporter's account over there.
Yeah.
So
Correct.
this would be processing in that manner. So in the India terms, in the mirror account, whatever the entry is being made, the whatever the foreign regulation with the currency transaction charges and all such things, they will be reflecting in their INR account.
INR account. Correct.
Yeah, and subjectly that the party would be debited or credited, whatever the situation would be there.
Yes.
Yeah, so I guess that might be a clearer. Oh,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, continue then.
Thanks, Nilesh. Yeah. Okay.
One more question, Murli. So basically, we saw in domestic transactions that the clearance and settlement is done by RBI, which is regulating it. So here, which body takes care of the clearance and settlement when it is cross border?
That's why. So in cross border, the clearing systems are not directly involved, right? Because um, it is a different geographically, it is a different country, and politically, it is managed by different entities. And
Hmm.
right, so we cannot now India and city, but when you say systems, it has to cover all the countries, right? So we don't have any
Right.
such system because it is very tedious process that following all countries' norms. Because believe me, not all countries follows the same thing. Even address type is very very difficult. So the address payment address in the messaging itself is a big topic. So what I understood is that none of the countries are having a similar address structure except town and country. For example, let's say there are 10-20 fields in the address format itself. Out of those, country and town is mandatory for all the different countries, and different street name, building number, everything will be optional or not required. So either it is not consistent with any of the countries. So that itself is a uh, big challenge. Like that, every country is having a different norms over their payments and regulations over their payments. So we cannot at the moment we don't have any system that would cater to all the countries payment clearing or settlement. So that's why here the payments and clearing and settlement happens between the banks. So not
Understood.
yeah, not the central banks are not involved directly in these
Involved.
things.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So next one is messages. So basically, the messages are the tool, or can understood as a medium used for a communication between the banks or by the banks, or it can be any financial institutions. Why we are saying financial institutions is that, for example, if someone is not a bank but providing some kind of payment services, and they are kind of called as a financial institution, and they also have to follow the norms for the whatever the means they are, whatever the services they are providing. So this communication can be between banks, or it is between the customer or customer to bank as well, right? So ideally, these messages we can categorize into three major segments. So first one is value message. Value message is in the sense it is used for the money movement. For example, I'm sending a money to India. I mean, let's say let's talk about domestic itself. I'm sending a money to from HDFC to Axis, and if Axis receives this particular value message, it can be packsite. These are the ISO terms. I know it's a little technical. So basically what it does is, if Axis receives the message in any of these formats, then it understands that, okay, I need to do some money transaction. Okay, so that's why we are using these accounts. So each message type has a specific meaning, but in general, if Access is receiving any of these messages, then it means then they have to make a money transfer. So either it can be debit or a credit. So either it has to be debited or credited. That's based on this message types. So value messages are used for a money movement, whereas we have another category which is non-value messages. In general, right, we know that when I send a request, it is not always, money request, it is not always the case that it will be succeeded, or there could be some cases that I need to investigate more, or I need to request some uh, status of the transaction, or if I have to perform any other inquiries on those things. So there are other things will happen based on the value message I sent, based on the money transaction I initiated, right? So for those things, we have a separate messages provided in the ISO standard. So those messages are called non-value messages. So it does not move any money, or it will not involve in any fund transaction or fund movement. Rather, it would be used for any kind of investigation purposes that needs to be performed over the previously sent value message. So if any of this value message needs to be performed, then we need a non-value message needs to be performed, then we need a value message for that. Without this, this cannot act independently. Right. Next one is, in general, we have a system message. So system message is basically for a configuration, or you can say, whenever we send a non-value message, there are not every system will do the validation of those messages, but some systems will do. Like in US, we have a system FedNow and FedWire. So they will be validating the non-value messages also. So for those purposes, we have some system messages like this admin 004, admin 002, something like that. So these messages are used for either setting your system for initiating a payment, or it will be used for the validating your non-value messages, or it is used for some kind of broader communication, or it is used for stating the status of particular bank, whether that particular bank is up and running, or whether it is ready to receive the money, or they're not ready to receive the money, they are under maintenance. All those things will be communicated using these system messages. So basically this will be used for configuration, this will be used for any investigation or status reporting purposes, and this is used for sending the money. Okay, so any questions? Okay, so we'll move forward. So this is the clearing. So clearing, in the sense, we saw that, right? We have a central bank and we have the receiver bank, and there is one central body. So that's what it is. There is one central body that is called clearing house. Okay. So in domestic payments alone, this clearing house is, it would make more sense. Or I would say in domestic payments alone, the clearing houses are operated. Okay. So these clearing houses are nothing but a single, there's only one entity, and they are central for all the banks, and they are the trusted entity. How they are trusted entities means they will kind of responsible for all the money transaction happening in the domestic system. So they need to ensure that all the transactions are legal to the utmost to the best of their systems. They have to ensure that all those things are legal and it's not sanctioned transaction or fraud transaction or money laundering transaction. They have to ensure that, and they have to ensure that the communications all all are secure, and they have to ensure that all the banks participated in the systems are reliable, which means if bank is they should not register, they should not onboard any bank that tomorrow that might go to bankrupt. So they have to do all the due diligence, and they have to do all the proper reporting. So that's why the clearing systems are very trusted entity for all the banks within the country, right? So what they do, when it comes to what they do, each bank will be sending a message to the clearing system in domestic, and they will be first they will receive the message and they will validate, like whatever the process they have defined. According to that, they will validate whether the sender bank has followed all those things or not. Then they will transmit the message to the respective receiver bank, and also they will document it. And whenever the response or investigation or inquiry, any of those things are made, and they will match those things with the previously processed value message. So all these things they will do, and finally they will facilitate the settlement, and that settlement will happen at the central bank. So you can say, in general, the clearing and settlement concepts comes together, and the clearing performs all this well, transmitting the messages, documenting messages, matching those messages, everything it will do, and it will facilitate the settlement. And central bank system will do the final settlement, which is actual money movement from the sender bank to receiver bank. Okay, and this clearing and settlement, or I would say, in settlement alone, it will be happening in general, two categories are there. One is gross settlement, another one is net settlement. Net settlement further bifurcated into bilateral netting, multilateral netting, deferred netting. Okay, so the gross settlement, in the sense, the transaction will happen individually. For example, let's say I am supposed to give $1,000 or 1,000 rupees to Shipra, and Shipra is supposed to give me 800 rupees back to me. So what we will do is, I will send 1,000 rupees to her, and again she will do 800 rupees transaction to me. Right? There will be two accounting entries, two transactions are involved in it. Right? So that's the gross settlement. All the payments are processed individually. Okay. Whereas in the net settlement, the same case, what happens is that we will do only the difference part of it. For example, I am supposed to send 1,000 rupees to Shipra, and she has to send 800 rupees back to me. So finally, I have to send, if I send 200 rupees to Shipra, then it is settled, right? So it is tallied. So that's what the net settlement will do. It will collect all the transaction, and it will calculate the final number, who has to give what. So those numbers are calculated. Then, which is, this part, the calculation part, the obligation part, everything will be doing by the clearing, and it will do the final number. It will send it to the settlement system. So settlement system simply debit the money, whatever clearing is sending to them, debit from the sender bank and credit to the receiver bank. That's all it will do. So all other calculation, everything will be taken care by the clearing, right? So in this, bilateral netting means, for example, HDFC, and assume that HDFC and Axis are the two banks in India. There are no other banks, right? So it means that they can directly agree with each other that I will settle money with you. Okay, they can go with an agreement, and whatever the money movement happens between those banks, and they will do the netting, and they will finally settle it in the central bank. Okay, so that is a bilateral netting. So it is basically an agreement between two different banks. Even in general, even today, if there are multiple banks, two banks, let's say HDFC and Axis, still can come, can make an agreement with each other for bilateral netting. So bypassing that respective clearing system, and they can do the bilateral netting within themselves. So after once netting is completed, they will do the settlement in RBA system. Okay, so this is bilateral netting. Multilateral netting, in the sense, that's when the clearing system comes into the picture. Clearing system will sit in the central, and all other banks, HDFC, Axis, ICICI, or Kotak, so whatever the banks, all the banks will be onboarded, will be onboarded to the clearing system. Again, clearing system will onboard based on their whatever regulations they keep. So based on that, those banks are connected to that clearing system, and whatever the transaction, right? For example, today, for one day, let's take one day. So there will be thousands or even millions of transactions from HDFC to different banks. It will not go to one particular bank, right? It will go to different banks. Like that, from all different banks, there will be a payments coming to HDFC as well. So that's what the clearing system will do in multilateral. It will collect all the sending transaction. At the same time, it will collect all the receiving transaction, and it will do the netting. Okay, for example, HDFC is sending 1,000 rupees to ICICI and 2,000 rupees to Axis and 3,000 rupees to Kotak. So it will calculate. So HDFC has three entry, and 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 is the amount. Like that, now ICICI is sending 500 rupees to HDFC. Again, let's say Axis is also sending 500 rupees to HDFC. And like now, let's say Kotak is sending 5,000 rupees to HDFC. So it will do netting. So HDFC has to send 1,000 to ICICI and receive 500 from ICICI. So in total, HDFC send only 500 to ICICI. So that is the final obligation. Like that, it will calculate all the obligation. And finally, those obligations are calculated. Then this clearing system will initiate a settlement in the RBI system, which is in India, it is RTGS, it is called. In RTGS system, they will initiate a fund movement, right? So there is one thing. I think someone asked, right? So whether customer is getting the money first or later. So these things, if fund movement is happening or the fund settlement is happening using bilateral netting or multilateral netting, in that case, bank gets the money first, which means receiver banks get the money first from the central bank, then they will credit to the respective customers. So that's what happens in the multilateral settlement. For example, if you do NEFT, or end of the day we have NACH in the payments in India, but mostly all of you are aware of NEFT, right? So if you do NEFT, in that case, bank gets the money first, then the beneficiary gets the money. At the same time, if you do IMPS, which means the customer gets the money first, then bank gets the money later. So that's the concept of defer netting. Again, defer netting is also like money multilateral only. They will calculate all the money whoever has to give, and all the money's final obligation is calculated and settled. Difference is that in deferred netting, first customer gets the money, then finally the bank gets the money. So only difference is these two things, right? So to perform this clearing and calculating all the obligations of final amount, so we have one system that is called clearing and settlement mechanism. In short, we call it as a CSM. So that CSM will sit in middle of sender bank and receiver bank, and both sender bank and receiver banks are connected to CSM only. They are not directly connected. If they are directly connected, then they will be using the bilateral netting. Okay, so are you able to understand these concepts?
So Murli, CSM charge something for the administration
Yeah,
services it is
yeah,
providing.
yes. They will. Banks has to provide the fee, even though, right? Some of the banks doesn't collect from us, but they have to pay the fee for clearing system.
And is it per transaction basis?
It is depends, right? If it's a per transaction basis, also they will have it, or there can be a fixed fee also they can collect.
Okay, but the fees will not be charged from the original person. So, if, for example, if I'm purchasing something, the fees will not be charged from me, right? It is
That's what,
directly.
again, that is up to the bank. For example, right? Let's take IMPS. From my experience, if I'm initiating an IMPS from either from HDFC or SBI, I am not charged for it. Whereas if I initiate the same IMPS from Indian Overseas Bank, I am charged 5 rupees for it. So it's up to the bank.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Murli.
Okay. Right. Okay. Just we will complete this routing and reachability, and we will wind up today. Okay, I hope you're all on board for next 10 minutes, I believe. Okay, so routing. Routing is the process of selecting an efficient and secure route. So I need to send a payment from bank A to bank B, right? So, and how do I know which is a bank B, right? I need to identify. So those and identify and how to send the message direct properly or securely to the bank B. So those things logics are involved in the routing system. So for that, we'll be using some of the banking identifications used. Okay. So in Indian context, I'm sure all of you have know that IFSC, right? So IFSC is nothing but a unique identification for identifying a different banks. That's it. Like that, we have business identifier code. This is used for in SEPA region, and also internationally, if you are using a cross-border payment, then you will have to use this. So it is like, IFSC is a local number, local identification number. And if you want to identify the same bank from international perspective, then you have to use BIC. Like that, we have a ABA RTN for US and sort code for UK, and each country will be having their own type of identification, right? So how does it look is like big. This is the format. So you know uh, every identification has some definitions into it. For example, if you take a big, it is a first four uh, um, first four letters will say this is a bank, what bank it is. So it is a HSBC UK, right? So that's what this four letters says. Then it says what kind of country. GB means UK, Great Britain. So next one is the country, and other next after that it follows the location, the proper location in that country, maybe a city you can say, and then after we have a branch in one city itself. You will be having multiple branches, right? So if you want to identify that particular branch, then you have to give a branch code. So in total, BIC will be having a total length of minimum of 8 to 11 alphanumeric characters. So like that, IMPSS will be having a different one format also. For if you take SBIN 0, this number, SBIN, obviously it is SBI Bank. This 10 is now currently reserved for future purposes. If anything comes up, they will use it. And another last 6 characters are defining the specific branch. So if you use this, it says SBI Agra main IFSC code. So I'm sure you might have come across a lot of IFSCs in your experience. So technically it means that if you want to send the money to one bank to another bank, this IFSC code is mandatory so that the sender bank can easily identify to whom it is sending the money, and it can further it can identify how easily or how efficiently it can send the money to that particular bank. So like that, we have an RTN code and SART code. So like we said, each identification will be having their own definition and according to the based on their country norms. Okay, so any questions on routing?
So Murli, does it also check if the person has a bank account in that IFSC code? So for example, I have an account in ICICI Bank, and ICICI Bank can have multiple branches.
True.
So if I am giving an IFSC code, I might not be aware of the current association. Let's say I have transferred from Bangalore to Gurgaon, and I somehow give the account number of a Bangalore when my account has already been transferred to Gurgaon. So behind the scenes, does it check whether the account is present in that IFSC code or not?
A sender bank, if you're sending from HDFC to ICICI, then your HDFC cannot validate those things. But you will be, for example, right, you are giving an account number ABC, but IFSC code instead of ICICI Gurgaon, you are saying giving ICICI NC or something like that. Okay. So the message will go to ICICI NCR. It will validate that whether this person is having my account in my books. Okay. So, right, even though it is ICICI, there's a central system. It will identify this particular account is mapped against that particular IFSC. Even though it is IFSC, ICICI only, it will check, okay, this account is mapped against this account number. Sorry, this IFSC. So they will do, and probably they will most likely based on the payment type, they will reject it, or if it is a cross border, then probably they will repair it.
Okay,
Uh,
repair also happens, like they'll
yeah.
map it with the IFSC code and send it
Yes,
across.
yes, correct. Because normally in cross-border payment, you will just give the big, for example, right? If it is in, if you want to send the money or receive money HDFC, right? So I'll be giving my HDFC big to the Chennai city only. But in Chennai city, I have a one, particular branch, which is not a big branch. So the big branch of Chennai city will receive that fund and they will redirect it to the respective bank. So based on the payment type, they will do the reporting. I'm sorry, repairing, or they probably directly they can reject also. So that's
Does it
mostly
happen in domestic as well?
in domestic. Most likely they will reject it, and
Huh.
because almost everything is in instant payment, and in even NEFT also they'll probably reject it.
Okay. But sometimes it may happen that my account has been debited already, right?
Yeah, that's what.
So
That time you will get a reversal.
okay, yeah.
So you have seen that, right? You will be, if the money is not credited, then you will get the money back in one day or 2 day or 3 or 4 hours, something like that.
Okay.
So that's what, right? Once account is debited from you, it will be, if it is not credited to the customer, then it will be settled. It is credited in some account. Okay, so they will reverse that entry. Okay.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, so next one is the connectivity or reachability. Like I said, one is technical connectivity reachability. So that is totally on technical side. So it can be MQs or APIs. So whatever the means that clearing system is advising a bank to do, they will connect with that. But when we are saying here the connectivity or reachability, we are talking from the functional perspective. So we earlier saw, right, if you want to move money from one person to another person or one bank to another bank, you must have an account. Without account, you cannot do that. So that's why there is a concept called accounting relationship, right? So the accounting relationship, again, we saw Nostro, Vastro, Loro. That is, even though it is a cross border, that since there's a concept that will still apply in local bank also. Okay, so Nostro means my account in yours. That's it. So it can be in cross border or it can be in local also. So if, for example, if bank A is unable to reach bank B directly, then they have to use, okay, they have to use another person, which is a correspondent bank. Okay, so that correspondent bank will provide a local banking service to that customer. For example, HDFC is opening an account in City, right? So HDFC can avail all the banking services provided by City, but City is providing those services where? In USA, right? So HDFC can access all the US payment related transaction using City. Like that, if it is a domestic payment, for example, very smaller corporate so cooperation bank wants to be part of clearing system, and clearing system denies their participation, then the the cooperation bank probably reach out to that HDFC, which is a bigger bank, and HDFC will provide all their services to the cooperation bank, and based on that, they can access to the clearing indirectly. So okay, here the HDFC bank plays as a correspondent bank for that local smaller bank. So this is just a concept, but in general, they will say correspondent bank is used in international payments only, cross-border payments only. But if you apply the logic, that is still same for domestic also. So that's what in option one, a bank and bank B, let's say either bank A has an account in bank B or bank B has an account in bank A. In any such cases, they can directly send a payment with each other. So uh, there is no restrictions for them. Okay, so either they have that or the common PMA. PMA is nothing but a CSM. We saw that, right? In CSM, no banks are directly connected to each other. All the banks will connected only to the clearing system. So in such cases, they can directly send the money. For example, another case, if option two, if bank A and bank B is unable to reach directly, that's when there is a correspondent bank comes into the picture, right? So correspondent banks, in this case also, either bank A can have an account in bank X or bank B can have an account in bank X. It's not necessary. In some other case, both banks can have an account in bank X also. That is also possible. But eventually, if bank A wants to reach a bank B, either one of these banks must have an account in bank X, right? Or there is one more case, bank X also can have an account in bank A and it can have an account in bank B. So in any which case, accounting relationship must be there for the proper fund movement. Okay. So any questions on this reachability part?
Only in the payments, actually, we also come across some Swift payment. So, is this particularly having some interact connection with the from one bank to the other in the Swift codes what we get over there?
Yeah, that's what. So in cross-border payments, Swift is nothing but a cross-border. I mean, I would say I would properly call it as a cross-border payments because Swift is just a network. Anyone can use it. It can be a cross-border or domestic. So I would say in cross-border, mostly the correspondent banks comes into the picture most of the time. But in like you said, right, it will be identified using the BIC. The Swift codes are nothing but BIC. Okay.
Okay, that is for the US.
No, Swift is international. Sorry, BIC code is international.
Okay. So they are using this big codes over there and for identifying the banks over there
Yeah.
between the two.
Yes, true.
So the transaction will be taking place like HDFC and the Citibank of the USA.
Correct.
So they are connecting between this.
Yes. For example, right? Let's take one use case like HDFC has to send a money to someone in I mean, a person from HDFC has to send a money to someone in USA. Like probably that person is having an account in Bank of America. But we saw, right, HDFC, as per our example we saw earlier, HDFC does not have an account in Bank of America. Rather, they are having an account in Citi, right? So HDFC will send a message to Citi and Citi will send the money to Bank of America. So here Citi is the correspondent bank. And how they identify is basically using the Swift code or BIC code.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. So I think we have come to the last slide.
Do normally Swift code has the error transactions and all such things. So like a network connectivity, so it get breaks out and a particular receipt is not got. So there might be some error codes or something like that in that flow also, right?
Yes. So the Swift code is basically to identify the bank. See, whenever there is an error or something like that happens, that's when we saw that, right? Non-value messages will come into the picture. So for example, bank A is trying to send a message to bank B, but if a message is not reached, sorry, bank X, if a message is not reached to bank X, then bank A will be waiting for a notification from bank X from a non-value message which says that I received your message. If bank A is not receiving that message, then it will send an inquiry. Boss, I sent you one message, whether you received it or not. Okay, so that one inquiry bank A will initiate. Even if that is not happening, then only they will further dig into the verification process why that bank X is not responding to us. It will be in different means like direct email, phone call, something like that. Whatever the agreement between them to contact between each other. So all those things will come into the picture. But Swift code is simply
Okay.
to identify the bank.
Okay. Thanks, Murli. Got it.
Yep. Okay. So okay, last part. So whenever you are initiating a payment, I'm sure you have to give these are the bare minimum information from your side because your bank doesn't know anything. Okay. Even though you are having an account in the particular bank, that bank doesn't know. For example, let's say, right, if you don't give any information and you approach a bank and say, transfer money, does it know whom to send, how much to send, when to send, right? So those informations are the bare minimum information that you have to give. Okay. Even Even if you are having an account in their bank, and let's say you are having multiple accounts, savings account and checking account, they don't know, right, which account I need to take amount from. So those informations at least you have to give. Okay, so that's what originator account, beneficiaries account, beneficiaries bank identification. So based on the payment type, it can be IFSC, ABA, or sort code or BIC. And when you want to send the money, so that is date. So some of the things are automatically fetched up, like date is something for domestic payment. If you are initiating IMPS, RTGS, in those cases, dates are automatically populated because it is immediate. And amount and currency, in of course in currency also, it is in domestic payments, obviously it is INR, so it will not, you don't have to give it, but amount you have to give, and a remarks for that payment. And some banks are, I think in all the banks in India also, remarks are now mandatory, I believe, but we cannot say that mandatory for all other countries, right? And possibly the clearing is nothing but the system through which you want to initiate a payment, like IMPS, NEFT, RTGS. Okay, so those are all the clearing that you have to choose. So from any, this is what I meant to say. From HDFC's mobile banking perspective, this is what you would say: originator account, whose account you are initiating a payment from, and to whose account you are crediting the payment, and how much, and what is the currency, when, and what is the clearing, IMPS, NEFT, or UPI. What is the clearing that you are using, and what is the remarks. So all this information will be, these are the bare minimum information that a bank needs for initiating the payment. So that's how a payment starts from here and gets credited to the beneficiary, right? So to summarize, what all the concept we saw: we need an accounts, we need a messages for communication between banks, and we need a clearing system that will perform that clearing activity, like receiving the message, validation and documentation, all those things it will do. And it will do the settlement between sender bank and receiver bank. And it will do, we have a routing, so to identify which bank I need to send the money. And finally, we have a connectivity, how do I reach that bank, right? So these are all the main concept that applies for either in domestic payment transaction or cross-border payment transaction. These 6 things are mandatory that you should be aware when you are, when you want to learn about payments, or when you're starting in the payments domain, right? Okay, so any questions? I'm done for this 1 hour. I'm sorry I just taken few more minutes.
Hi, Murli.
Hey, hi Srikanth.
Am I
Yeah.
audible?
Yes.
Yeah, first of all, I would like to appreciate you for taking your time and helping us to run these things. I have 2 questions.
Mhm.
See, I work in a US mortgage company. I just want to shift to payments domain. Do I need to do any course, or can I read material and by going through your videos like this, can I learn? Or how can it help me?
Okay. Okay, there are some materials out there, probably,
Mhm.
I have on YouTube channel also, where I am discussing about India, US payments, like FedNow and FedWire. You can go through
Okay.
that to understanding the payments. And,
Mhm.
uh, first of all, that's whatever the concept we saw, right? So that the same concept applies in US also. This clearing, settlement,
Okay.
everything, messaging, everything will be applied in US also. But when you go to that channel, you will
Mhm.
understand it more. And there are some of the
Okay.
websites, I would say, uh,
Okay.
Paymentar, or there are some other material. You can payments domain. Okay, there are some websites you can go through that, and there are some trainings also. And
Okay.
but I would say, get your fundamentals straight, or get your fundamentals correctly, then move into
Okay.
learning the going into the further trainings.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Can you
hi
share
Murli.
this PPT?
So this session is recorded, so I think I will send it to Shipra. You can see it in the
Okay.
yeah. Even
Okay. And what's your YouTube channel name?
uh, it is Curious Murali, Murrali.
Okay. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem.
Hi Murli.
Yeah, Abhishek. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I have some 7 years of experience in payments domain. That is as an operation user.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have done NEFT, RTGS, and ACH payments,
Mm-hmm.
domestic payments, and everything. Currently, I'm working 2.5 year in investment banking domain. But since I'm still after 2.5 year, I'm not comfortable with this domain. I would like to. I mean, now currently working as a business analyst.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to shift to a payments domain business analyst. As
Okay.
per my research, I came to know about skill board certification. I just want to know from you, is that good to have, or is there any other way to find me to get into business analyst payments domain?
Okay. See, if you ask me, okay,
Mm.
even I would always recommend getting the knowledge first. Certificates are secondary. Okay, so I can
Mm.
simply enroll myself into some course and whatever they say, I will learn to that. And probably with exams also, let's say I'm passing. But those things are, I mean, the getting this just certificate alone will not help you to get a job, because when you go to the interview questions will be from practical perspective. So you need to understand the concepts, so that you need to understand the accounting relationship first. For example, let's say they're asking whether I can send the money from A to B without accounts. Then if you know the concept, then only you can say no, you cannot move fund from accounts without accounts, right? So those are the fundamental things that you need to get it get well. And those things you will have to read first. Maybe yes, I would say don't enroll to the training only for the certificate perspective, but I would rather say enroll to the training to get the proper knowledge. Understand the domain first very well, then use that to learn. Use that training as a first step, and explore the concepts whatever they discussed in the training, and explore it by yourself more, so that you will get more understanding on those things. Then you will be more comfortable on this.
Yep, sure.
So but by the way, that business analyst concept, I mean, what are the skills that you are doing in any other domain, those business analyst skills are still relevant in payments domain. So that is different area. So I'm just talking from the domain perspective.
Okay. Yeah.
So, Muli, your experience over there on the payment side, do you have a coverage over there like derivative swaps and also the forex payments and all payment trade finance? All you have
No.
covered up, or it is only the banking like you are making a payment for export or import or regarding the bill payment. It is only the case.
Yeah, so it is from the payment processing perspective. Yes, like you said, you can say that it can be export or import. It's not use case. But we are building a system that will used by the banks for payment processing. Okay, so that payment processing, it can be an online payment or offline payment. Okay,
Correct.
so only those things. But derivatives, swaps, forex, all those things itself is a big topic. Which I didn't get I didn't get a chance to work on
Yeah,
those.
I was just looking after only that thing over there. Ki normally for that, when one of the transaction is being taking place over there, ki when a person from the foreign origin, he makes a trade from the USA and
Yeah,
makes a trade over there in India, and how the payment goes across over there, like a cross border also, and how the transactions also flow.
yeah.
Means
So
it's
trade
actually it's a
itself is a
vast
separate
domain, I
domain.
guess.
Yeah, trade itself is a
Yeah,
separate domain. Like we have payments
correct.
and we have a cards. Like that, we have a trades itself is trade is a separate domain. Market is a separate domain. So everything has their own domain on their own. So it's everything is vast there. Not everyone will get a chance to work on everything.
Correct.
Even in cross border also, if I say we are using forex, but we will be knowing forex from only high level. We don't know what exactly happening inside the forex system and
Correct.
how those. Yeah.
Granular level, we won't be able to know that much over there.
Yes. So just we know, okay,
But
forex, this is where the forex will happen. That's all we know.
yeah, but your Sami, your actually presentation do help us quite a lot because the basic understanding of
Yeah.
these four items over there, na, was great over there.
Yeah. Thanks, Nilesh. So that's
Yeah,
what.
thanks.
So use this as a fundamental, and research more on this. Then you will get more, do- topics out there, because there are no structural materials, as I would say. We have to identify one topic and understand the topic, then another topic pops up in your mind. So you just have to, get information in bits and pieces, then relate everything together. And in payments, that's how it is. Okay, I'll just ping him. I just pinged it, my YouTube channel. I don't know whether it would come properly because it's not so famous, right? So just look around it. Or, just use Curious Murli and FedNow or FedWire along with it. Probably you'll get something there.
So Murli, what you can do is you can, every channel has a link. So you
Yeah.
can post link in the BA club
Yeah, I'll post
along
that.
with any
Yeah.
free materials which might be available online, any YouTube channels for payment
Yeah.
specific knowledge. So that
Sure,
will be
sure.
helpful.
I will share those. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Murli.
Okay.
And thanks for the session. The session was very much in the layman terms, and you demonstrated how easy it is to understand domain if you just correlate it with your day-to-day transactions. So any domain at first may sound very tough, very difficult, but once you start going into use case, why we are doing this, why my business person is doing a particular thing, what scenarios they are handling. So if we correlate your domain with the use cases and with the business scenarios, it becomes very easy to understand even the complex things. So every
Yeah.
domain is complex, no domain is simple, but once you start correlating it with day-to-day cases, you'll start understanding it. And the entire presentation today was very down to earth, very much, you were making us relate with the day-to-day transactions that we are doing, and it was very easy to understand. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, Shipra.
Thanks
Thank
for
you,
agreeing for the session.
No
Yeah.
problem.
And in case anyone has any doubts, feel free to post them in the BA club, and I'll pass it on to the Murli, and hopefully he'll
Yeah.
answer those.
I'm also
Yeah.
part of BA club only. So if anyone wants to reach out to me separately, you can ping me in Telegram as well.
Yeah, but I can pester him for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's not
No.
responding. So yes, so in case you have joined me for some other, so Murli, what I did was I posted this link on multiple channels.
Okay.
Usually I post the link on BA Club,
Okay.
because most of our audience is there, but this time I posted it on multiple channels. So in case any of you have joined us, from outside the BA Club group, I'll just want to highlight that, you can search for our club, THEBACLUB in Telegram, and we arrange a BA related session every Saturday. So usually it is at 9:30. Today we did it at 8:30 for, according to Murli's convenience. And I think it was good because then we were able to stretch it out, but otherwise it would have gotten very late for Murli. So we conduct a session every day. So hopefully you'll benefit from those sessions. So domain sessions we are able to arrange if we have a trainer like Murli today. But most of the time we talk about BA skills and how we can grow in the BA career. So once again, thanks Murli, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Shipra, and thanks everyone for
For your
taking
time.
your weekend and joining us for that learning. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Murli. Thanks, Shipra.
Thank you.
Thank you.